Hello, it's Thursday, May the 13th, and we're almost halfway through May already. And tomorrow will be Fun Facts Friday, and we have the first of, I think, two Fridays with Jimmy Easterby and our sports ministry. So look out for that tomorrow. But today we're in chapter 17 of Isaiah and beginning at verse 12 and heading into chapter 18, which is a short 7-verse chapter. And Isaiah now turns his attention on the world. We've seen him address Babylon, Assyria, the Philistines, Moab, Damascus, Ephraim, surrounding territories. And now he turns his attention to the world, and he uses a metaphor of a storm at sea. And in verses 12, 13, and 14, he talks about thunder and the roaring of the sea and so on. And it's fairly common in the Old Testament that the Jews were terrified of the sea, even though there was a coastline, the Mediterranean. It was occupied by the Philistines for most of its existence, and so they were not great seafarers. The Jews did not engage in much trading, for example, by sea. And so the great monster of the sea, Leviathan, you see him in Job and elsewhere, generally the sea is a place of darkness and terror. And the nations the world nations further afield are threatening and menacing. The nations roar like the roaring of many waters, but he will rebuke them, and they will flee far away, chased like chaff on the mountains before the wind, and whirling dust before the storm. And in the first verse of chapter 18, we are in Cush, and Cush, of course, is basically Egypt for the prophet, and Egypt is trying to protect itself against Assyria, our land of whirring wings. The locusts, of course, that plagued the ancient world and still does today. And they came from hot countries, like sandy countries like Egypt. O land of whirring wings that is beyond the rivers of Cush, which sends ambassadors by the sea in vessels of papyrus on the waters. Go, you swift messengers, to a nation tall and smooth, to a people feared near and far, nation mighty and conquering, whose land the rivers divide. And he asks, all you inhabitants of the world, you who dwell on the earth, when a signal is raised on the mountains, look, when a trumpet is blown, hear. And he is telling Egypt to look to him and to listen to the warning of the coming invasion. And he ends, will they see it? And in verses 4, 5, and 6, he talks about pruning. For before the harvest, when the blossom is over and the flower becomes a ripening grape, he cuts off the shoots with pruning hooks, and the spreading branches he lops off and clears away. They shall all of them be left to the birds of prey of the mountains and to the beasts of the earth, and so on. And the metaphor here of pruning. And what is God doing in world history in the 7th and 8th century BC? And he is demonstrating that he is in control. He is the sovereign God of heaven and earth, and the only place of hope is to be found in the promise that he made to the house of David. It's unlikely that the Egyptians were reading this, this is meant for the ears of the faithful, that God is saying there is no hope in alliances with other nations, and the history of the Old Testament is littered with attempted alliances with this nation or that nation to protect themselves against invaders and so on. And God is saying, no, they must trust in the Lord and in Him alone. Well, next week, Fun Facts Friday, tomorrow, next week, we'll be in chapter 19 of Isaiah, but have a wonderful weekend.